wonder what no bring about children.
We are getting you ready for a career readiness tour. It's called Classroom to Career. And this morning I welcome Sermoya Sandiford, the founder and coach at Sermoya Career Coaching Services, to tell us a little bit more about it. Good morning to you, Sermoya.
Hi, good morning to you. Thank you so much for having me
Not
here.
a problem. How are you doing this morning?
I am well this morning.
Tell me what inspired you to have this Classroom to Career readiness tour.
Right, so I've been an HR practitioner for the past 8 years.
Okay.
More than 8 years. And there are some things that I'm seeing in my personal practice. So I felt as though I should be part of the solution. We always complain about how young people come into the workplace, they're not prepared amidst all the world of work sessions that they have, but they're just not ready for the realness of the workplace. And so that inspired me to do a career readiness tour.
Tell me, what are some of the things that you see that young people were missing in terms of being ready?
So general understanding of workplace culture. We have the challenges with emotional intelligence as well, because we have multi-generational persons in the workforce, and they just don't have the behaviors that will help them to be successful in the workplace. So sometimes they come a bit aggressive, or they come with certain behaviors that says they are not quite ready. Some persons are very well educated, they got their qualifications, but they're just not sure how to fit in and blend. So these are some of the things that I see happening. And I say, let's put it together in a workshop. Apart from the interview prep and so on, let's give you all the tools that you will need practically and so on to get ready for the workplace.
So who is this workshop targeting?
Right, so for all school leavers, secondary school and tertiary level.
Okay.
Yeah, usually the universities do a world of work, but there's nothing really for the school leavers, secondary school level. And a lot of them come out of school and go straight into the workplace.
Right. So tell me some of the things that you hope to be able to say, all right, this is the process by which we can fix that challenge when it comes to behavior, for example.
Right. So in my workshops, I do a lot of live practical examples.
Right.
We talk about a simple issue as late coming. How do you approach when you come into work and you arrive late? What is the first thing that you usually do? And even one of the challenges I see is the issue of gossip. Aligning yourself to the right friends. I recently did a session on high-value friendships in the workplace, and it is something that we need to be careful with, who we align ourselves with, how we match our friendships, our social relationships to our personal goals in life as well. So again, it's practical, it's not very theoretical, it's something that is going to help them as they progress in their own career.
Now, it's very interesting for me because I remember, well, I always see it in the workplace, right? You talk about the generational differences, right? And if I enter a workplace, there's a culture that exists already. If I enter a workplace that doesn't have a very positive culture, there tends to be a way where people either fall into that culture or they seem aggressive by standing up to that culture.
That's right.
How do we balance the both?
Well, first of all, you need to spend time observing because you have to understand you don't know everything. There's a story behind a lot of things. And in the workplace, there are a lot of grievances. People would have been there for years upon years.
They have trauma.
They have
institutional trauma.
That's correct. So it's important to have emotional intelligence and balancing the environment that's around you. Not everything you're going to respond to, but then keeping your personal goals in mind is very important. What are you here for? And that's the message that I'm sending to the youth in this program. Keep sight of where you want to go, the things that you are looking to do, and allow the workplace to be that stepping stone for you.
Yeah. Now, I know that it's a very oftentimes difficult transition to go from school life to work life, because it's almost like chalk and cheese, right? You spend so much time in school developing relationships and building that community, and then boom, you leave there, and now you have to start afresh. You start anew with people who don't know each other from however long. They've been working together and they've been falling out with each other, they've been making up, they've been doing the work that needs to get done. I have noticed that with the generation that come into the workplace now, they come with particular expectations as well. Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
To some extent, it can be positive. It's just a message for persons in the workplace to understand that the new generation have different values. But it's also an opportunity for each of us to learn, right? So there are things that young people coming out, we call them Gen Zers, they are not going to tolerate, and that's okay. The workplace has to make room for those expectations now, because working yourself to death is not a thing. It shouldn't be a thing.
So this is where I find it difficult, right, Sermoya, because it's like you're saying on one hand that you come into a culture and you meet certain things that you're going to have to fall in line with. But if the things that you consider them to be toxic and not so positive, and I don't want to fall in line with that, but then you're seen as an outcast, where do you find that balance in terms of, I want to be a part of this workforce, I want to be able to contribute positively, but the things I'm seeing make me a little bit worried about who I would turn into if I continue along this path. Do I try to change the environment around me bit by bit, or do I accept that it is what it is and I just play my role in it?
I think it's a little bit of both, because there are times where you can't do anything about the situation, but your goal again is to learn from the environment that you are a part of and be sure that when you become in a particular position, that's not how you are going to conduct yourself. You'll be a
but by the time you get there.
But while that is happening, again, the learning is happening, but you still have to pay your dues along the way. There is a journey. Appreciating the journey is important. But then while you are doing that, you have your values. You are saying, this is how I operate. That's part of your personal brand. So you don't have to follow the crowd. There's a way that you do your work. There's a way that you say, listen, I don't appreciate people speaking to me in that way. Right. I wouldn't give you the energy that you are giving me. And doing those things will allow you to build your brand, and persons after a while, they will respect you for who you are. So I'm saying it is going to be a journey for young people. It's one thing to start. It's difficult for you to start hard and fast, because it's not going to work like that. It's important to learn and progress as you grow, and then develop your own personality going forward.
And as you grow, right, and you might start off with your ideal values, and you might say, you know, I stand for this and I stand for that. But as you mentioned, some things you have to accept that they are beyond your control. Right. But how long is it before that starts eroding at who you are?
Well, it all depends on what's the environment that you keep around you. It really depends, which is why I speak about high-value friendships, getting mentors as well, connecting yourself. I speak about getting on LinkedIn and connecting with professionals in your field. Right. And when you engage with professionals, you get more tools and more tips as to how to go about navigating this life. It's important to have a mentor, especially for young people.
Yeah. How important? How do you stay motivated in an environment where you may be opposed to some of the values and the system that you're seeing, and you're saying, but I can see all the flaws. I can understand that I can't change it, right? But how do you stay motivated to come to work every day, to be a part of that, even though you may be saying, well, I stand for better and I stand for more and I'm doing my part to make it better without disrupting anything, without disrupting anybody, but you're doing your part? How do you stay motivated when you see everything else around you looking so slack, looking like it's falling apart? How do you encourage young people to stay motivated and on that path?
Understand that it is part of your journey. This is not your end. This is where you start, and you have pieces and bits that you are going to pick up to carry with you, and there are some things that you are going to leave behind. So as part of setting your goals, you know what I want and what I do not want. So a typical example is when you see people in the organization 10, 15 years and it seems like they're not going anywhere, and their behaviors is as such, but you say to yourself, I will not be this person in the next few years. I'm going to progress. I may not stay here, but what I am going to do is better than what I'm seeing here.
Yeah. How would you suggest that you set goals in terms of, in 5 years I want to achieve X, Y, Z?
Absolutely. That's part of my session as well. We do a goal setting session. I give them a vision board, and we look at every area of your life where you want to have that development, and we work on goals for the next 3 to 5 years. Yeah.
What other aspects of things you deal with in this workshop?
All right. So typical things like resume writing and cover letter writing. We look at the emotional intelligence aspect, as I said, building your personal brand, and basic things. What would you expect on your first day on the job? Right? I like to compare your classroom or your school experience to the work experience. There are things that we take for granted. For example, timekeeping. Your teachers remind you of your deadlines at work. You are in control of that, and you have to meet those standards. People are not going to run you down necessarily, right? So it's those basic things that will help you to keep focus and keep track on what you are here for, and that is the intent of this.
You mentioned personal branding quite a few times, and I oftentimes feel as though people confuse personal branding with marketing of themselves. So we live in an age of social media where everybody is their own brand. Everybody go on Instagram as a brand. Everybody have this brand and this brand and this brand. What do you mean when you say personal brand?
Well, for the purpose of this workshop, personal branding is what is you. what you bring to the organization. So the quality of work, for example, that you produce. If persons can be able to say, well, this person answers emails every single time.
Right.
That is part of your brand because you are an effective communicator. You are able to communicate with the persons that are around you, and you have a standard that is associated with your name.
And that's the part I wanted to get to understand that there's a standard. We're talking about setting a standard for yourself and maintaining that standard.
Yes.
How difficult is it to maintain that standard in a toxic work environment?
It can be difficult, but it all depends on the strength of the person's integrity and their mindset. And again, what are you here for? Are you here to join the club, or are you here to build a name for yourself in the right way?
All right, but isn't there a concern about that being a selfish approach?
Well, if you see it that way, but we need to get out of groupthink.
Ah, boy, that's a whole other conversation.
Yeah,
Tell me, how can school leavers be a part of this workshop?
All right, so I'm actually reaching out and connecting with community leaders. So I would have done a session with the Bonnet Police Youth Club.
Nice.
So police youth clubs are invited, the community centers, church groups as well. This is the purpose of me coming on to this session, just to reach out. And if you are interested in something like this for your youth community, reach out to me at info.coachsermoya@gmail.com, and I'll be happy to bring this session to you.
info.coachsermoya, that's SERMOYA, @gmail.com.
That's correct.
All right, well, Sermoya, I want to thank you so very much for joining us this morning. I think this is a great initiative because it definitely would help fill that gap in terms of expectations, especially.
That's right.
Yeah, and getting people as ready as they can be for the workplace. But let me tell you in advance, have nothing good and get prepared for what's going to come. Because it's ever evolving, ever changing, and you have to roll with the punches. But you can do it. I have faith in you, and if you check with Coach Sermoya, she'll make sure that you're as prepared as you possibly can be. Thank you so much for joining us this morning, Coach. Enjoy the rest of your day. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll take a quick break and we come back with more inside the Now Morning Show. Stay tuned.
Not later, but now. Think about the children. Not later, right now. Think about the children. Not later, but now. Think about the children. Not later, right now.